guys, welcome back. We are in now round 5.
Yeah.
The Star City Games Regionals, hosted by Kirwan's Game Store. Thank you again for joining us. Back here with Eric. Eric, I think we're in for a treat right now.
We've been picking some good ones. Oh man, I can't even say this with a straight face. We've got on one side we have the white Death and Taxes variant, you know, the Leon and Arbiter shenanigans deck.
Yep.
And on the other side we have a Hardened Scales deck with some nice cards.
We have a red-green Hardened Scales deck, right? We're on the primarily colorless game plan, right? We have some Copperline Gorges and a Forest and a Mountain main board for our Hardened Scales. We don't really have any red spells, I don't believe, but we do have some on the board. We have some Ancient Grudge, Gear for Aether Grids, Heroic Intervention, Whip Players.
Right.
So I'm ready for this.
Oh yeah. And yeah, there's some nice synergies in this deck. It's oh man, I hope that he plays some of these cards. He's got some cards from Dominaria in his deck.
Hey, we got Voltaic Servants.
Yeah.
At the end of your turn, untap an artifact, correct?
Yes. 2 mana for a 1/3. Untaps an artifact during your end step. So
we have a plethora of things to do with our tappable artifacts in this deck.
Yeah.
Mox Opal, right?
Yep. Mox Opal.
We have Aether Vial.
Yep.
Hangerback Walker.
Yep. And probably the best one is Steel Overseer.
Yeah. And just untap a land, right?
Yeah.
Darksteel Citadels, get an extra mana.
Yeah. Just very easily. Can you pull up Animation Module real quick? I want to see what the tap ability does. The deck also does have, if I remember correctly, Animation Module is whenever a creature enters, you can put a counter on something.
I think whenever you put a counter.
Oh, it's the make a servo. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Whenever you put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on a permanent you control, you may pay 1 if you do create a colorless 1/1 servo creature artifact token.
Right.
3, tap, choose a counter on target permanent or player, give that permanent or player another kind of that counter.
Right. So he can tap it, put more
counters on creatures, make servos.
Right.
Or he can tap it and put more counters on his Karn Scion of Urza's.
Yes. Also, if he has Metallic Mimic in play, when he puts a counter on something, he can just pay 1, make a servo, it gets a counter. And he can pay another 1, make another servo, it gets a counter. And he can just do that for as much mana as he has. So Animation Module plus Metallic Mimic kind of goes off, honestly. I really hope that we see some fireworks from this this Hardened Scales deck.
Yeah, I'm thinking we're in for some pretty good interactive magic here.
Yeah.
Could be a lot of attacking and blocking.
Oh, most definitely. Looks like
we got a couple of Thalias on Josh's side.
Yep. Moderately functional hand. I think I saw at least a Plains and a Ghost Quarter. Looks like he's keeping. And Sage is on the mull. We'll see. I didn't get a chance to look at Sage's hand. I'm assuming it must have just been like either all spells or all lands or something. Something not remotely keepable. I guess this Hardened Scales deck also requires definitely like a more well-balanced amount of payoffs and enablers versus like regular Affinity, which has like man lands and other ways to like mitigate having too much of one or too few of the other.
Yeah, and there's a few nombos with your Aether Vials and your Walking Ballistas and Hangerback Walkers, where you could have a hand of Vial and a bunch of creatures, but you're not able to Vial any of them in.
Right. Although, actually, there's one way you can do it. If you have Metallic Mimic out on Construct, you can Vial in for 0, and it will come into play with a counter, so it won't die. But that's obviously not necessarily the first thing you want to do. I think that, unless you have Animation Module, I think you actually probably do name Construct with Metallic Mimic. I think all the rest of the creatures are constructs, so that would probably make the most sense.
Yeah, as well as the tokens that Karn makes.
Right. That's true. Good point.
I actually did this in Standard for a little while.
Oh, here we go. Turn 1 Aether Vial. Josh is like, wait, that's my spell.
I think what's going to be throwing Josh off the most is that he went Copperline Gorge into Aether Vial.
That is true. That's you do not see that opening in Modern that much. All right, let's see what. So Temple. Womans? Okay. All right.
Get a redraw. Josh has his own Temple in hand. Flicker Wisps. Looks like a couple of Thalia, Gardeneth Ravens.
Yep. Obviously, Thalia is good versus a lot of Modern decks, but if your opponent goes turn 1 Aether Vial, your Thalias have gotten a lot worse.
Yeah, you are definitely not on the I need to deploy my Thalia as fast as possible plan.
Oh man, this is I wonder what Josh is thinking right now after seeing Copperline Gorge, Aether Vial, then Igmoth Nexus, Steel Overseer. Maybe he can sniff out that it's a Hardened Scales deck.
Josh has Eldrazi Displacer in his hand.
Yeah.
He's going to play a Ghost Quarter for the turn. Displacer really, really good against this particular deck.
Oh, yeah.
With 8 separate threats having 0 power and toughness.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's actually a lot of the cards in Josh's deck are actually really good versus the some of the constructs, both Hangerback Walker and Walking Ballista. I mean, Walking Ballista at least can get rid of like a Flicker Wisp, but an Eldrazi Displacer, it's a lot harder to get enough counters to kill it, and that Displacer can just take care of any of the XX creatures that Sage could possibly play. It's like
You go Hangerback Walker for 1.
it's an interesting. I mean, maybe Sage's hand is not great here.
Well, he does have the Steel Overseer. He does have Vial on 2 as well.
Right. All I can really think about here is the Displacer just naturally is going to beat Hangerback Walker just in play. So it's possible maybe Sage has Metallic Mimic in his hand and is going to Vial it in, named Construct, and then the Hangerback Walker will come back with a counter. Let's see what the play here is. Oh, okay, so
Thought-Knots here. So we got 2 from the Eldrazi Temple, 1 from the Ghost Quarter, 1 from the Plains. Gonna toss in a Thought-Knots here. Sage electing to Vial in a Steel Overseer. And he is now 2 Overseers deep. And if we see a Voltaic Servant at this point, things are just gonna get way too out of hand for Josh.
Yeah, he can go off. It is. Josh does at least have the Displacer to keep creatures in check somewhat, although it is a little mana intensive, so it'll be tough for him to develop his board while additionally being able to keep all of Sage's creatures under control.
Yeah, so Sage is on the red-green Hardened Scales aggressive deck, basically.
Yeah, it's pretty much, it's very similar to Affinity. It is playing a Hardened Scales engine, more or less. So it's playing things like Hangerback Walker, Arcbound Worker, stuff that combines particularly well with the Hardened Scales.
As overwhelming as Double Steel Overseer can be, I don't think Josh is actually in that much of a losing position because of Eldrazi Displacer.
I don't think so either. He will at least be able to get in a nice attack here. So he's going to get to attack for 4 poison and 4 on the ground, which isn't bad, but the wall of omens is. I guess he doesn't necessarily have to block the Hangerback Walker with Wall of Omens. He can just be patient. But
yeah, we still have our entire life total, and if it was an attack for 8, I might be more inclined to block. But the fact that it's 4 damage, 4 poison,
yeah,
I'm okay with taking both of those.
It's not super threatening. Oh, that's a nice draw. Another second temple means he can activate Displacer twice. That's going to be really strong here.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he was pretty much stuck with 1 activation per turn, which is pretty tough to deal with. But 2 activations a turn, that's really nice versus a deck trying to get counters on creatures.
Yeah, especially the fact that we can just get rid of the Hangerback Walker.
Right. Yeah, it's like pretty strong. I wonder, he might actually be able to attack this turn. Get a nice chunk in for 7. He's
got a Vial on. I don't think I'm worried about anything we can Vial in on turn 2.
I don't think so.
For
anything that gets Vialed in just gets it would lose in combat to a 3/3 and a 4/4.
Yeah. So the only thing I'd be worried about Vialing right now would be like another Steel Overseer, because that would just make things really, really hectic, really, really quickly.
Right. I agree.
He doesn't have anything else.
Yeah. No Vial activation.
The red mana in the red-green Hardened Scales deck is primarily for sideboard cards. Right. We got like Ancient Grudge, Skirper, Aether Grid, and Whip players in the sideboard.
Yep. Yeah, the main deck, the only colored spell in the entire main deck is Hardened Scales.
Yep.
But obviously, that spell is so important that he wants to have more colored sources than a regular Affinity deck. Plus, there's not any 0 mana creatures in this deck, so something like a Springleaf Drum isn't actually like that powerful. Obviously, Mox Opal's still good, but he does need to have enough green sources to get Hardened Scales down on turn 1 if possible.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is going to take out the Hangerback Walker. It's probably going to neutralize... Wait. He's just using Displacer's ability, targeting something else.
Yeah. I'd just go after one of the Steel Overseers.
Yeah.
He's going to tap the Steel Overseer to put counters and everything. Steel Overseer is going to then go away and become a 1/1 again.
Yep. Yeah, I think... Yeah, it's just going to be really hard for Sage to win from this spot because all these creatures are just going to get neutralized by this Displacer. And this Inkmoth Nexus, same thing. He has a Ghost Quarter in play too. So
yeah.
the Inkmoth Nexus is not going to be relevant almost ever just because the Ghost Quarter keeps it in check naturally. And then the Displacer keeps everything else in check. I would be very surprised if Sage can find a way out of this. And no, when Displacer blinks a creature, it comes back into play tapped, for anyone who's curious. Yeah, so that's why the Steel Overseer comes back into play tapped.
And we're just coming through for 7 2 more times.
That's going to be good enough. Displacer up, plus the Ghost Quarter up. I would be very surprised if Josh does not win this game. Yep, too little, too late. And now Josh understands. He's like, oh, I get it now. It all makes sense. I guess... I think... Let's see here. It's kind of interesting too. Josh has played just straight up just 3 spells the whole game, and it's just easily enough to win on their own against this type of strategy. Yes, it's not gonna be good enough. Hangerback Walker just gets beaten by Displacer. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Josh just has to win on board. He just blinks out a creature and then taps the other 2, and then that's that. Yep. Gets rid of 1. Gonna untap, draw for turn, and then be able to blink out both of the other ones, and that should do it. Looks like he's lining up his mana just to make that play. Yep, blink that.
Yeah, it should be 2 counters on the Steel Overseer from the Hardened Scales.
Right. Yep, 7. Good old 7. And that'll do it.
Okay.
So...
Yeah, so there was a few life total discrepancies, and we got them all correct, and Sage was indeed at less than 7 life, which was exactly what Josh was attacking for.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, a lot of decks would normally not have a lot of good ways of interacting with creatures, Steel Overseers that are 5/5s or like a 4/4 Hangerback Walker, but a deck with Eldrazi Displacer is kind of a natural predator to this deck, honestly.
I think white decks in general are going to be pretty good at preying on the Hangerback Walker because of Path to Exile.
Right, that too.
Right, and you have a lot of things if you are playing the more aggressive version with the Flicker Wisps and the Eldrazi Displacers.
Yeah.
And you have just creatures that do it on the everyday grind.
Yeah, pretty much. I think in order for Sage to get back from a spot like that, he probably had to draw Walking Ballista to be able to get rid of the Displacer and then play the rest of his cards. But even then, Josh had Flicker Wisps in his hand, and when he finally drew the Shafet Dunes, he would have had 2 white mana to actually be able to blink out whatever creatures and be able to keep attacking with that Thought Seer when needed.
Yep.
But now we get to go to sideboard, and what do we got? Well,
I think I like the Gear per Aether Grid again.
Yeah,
it's just one of those cards that you can help mow stuff down with. Phyrexian Revoker is actually really strong too.
Yes.
Name Eldrazi Displacer. Don't go through all those shenanigans again.
Right, yeah.
Whip Flare's probably okay. It's nothing phenomenal, and it's not going to be backbreaking versus your opponent.
Yeah.
But it will help you clean up a bunch of things and make it so that your draw or your board state becomes much better than your opponent's.
Right, that's true. The only issue that I have with Whip Flare is that after sideboard, I'm assuming that Josh is probably taking out some of his Thalias and possibly some of his other like smaller creatures. So Whip Flare might naturally just have like fewer targets. I do like Gear to the Aether Grid though. That card seems phenomenal here. Just as a way to like use all of his artifacts, and something like Displacer is not going to stop Aether Grid. It's just going to. It's very well, as long as Sage can accumulate enough artifacts in play, things like Displacer are never going to stick around long enough to actually matter.
Yeah.
What else? Yeah, no, Revoker, as you said too, definitely looks like it's pretty good here. Being able to stop just, Phyrexian Revoker, Phyrexian Revoker stopping Displacer seems like it's really important for Sage.
They actually
here.
both have Phyrexian Revoker in their sideboards.
They do.
And honestly, I think both of them are going to bring it in.
I think you're right.
Just because Josh can name Steel Overseer and Hangerback Walker and Karn's Hyaversa and Aether Vial.
Yep.
Whereas Sage can name Eldrazi Displacer, Aether Vial as well.
I think, for Josh here, it looks like it's got a couple copies of Stony Silence, which are definitely real nice against the deck with a bunch of artifacts. If your opponent's playing Voltaic Servant in their deck, Stony Silence is probably good against them.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And then he might actually play Declaration in Stone. It seems like a nice way to just be able to like exile a creature without it getting the counters to move anywhere else. Also, actually works with Stony Silence because you can make it so the clues don't actually do anything for your opponent.
Yeah, even if my opponent, even this specific opponent were to draw a few extra cards, again, he's a synergy-based deck.
Right, you just want to break up
If
the stuff.
I'm hitting your Hangerback Walker and you're drawing a Mox Opal, or a land, or just a single Arcbound Worker, I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? Your draw is not getting better because of something like that. Whereas if you're playing against like a Jund opponent, letting them draw another card is not great because all of their cards are so powerful.
Right, that's true. There's also one more guy that I like particularly. This Leonin Relic Warder is just a nice 2/2, actually exiles an artifact. So same thing where it can just like stop all of the counter strategies while presenting a cloth, like an actual body in addition. That card is one of the best cards in the sideboard.
And a 2-mana 2/2 is always welcome in a deck like this.
Oh yeah, you get to curve out and actually disrupt your opponent while you're doing it. It's music to Josh's ears, that's for sure. Alright, so Sage gets to be on the play. Let's see if he can keep a 7 this time.
Yeah, specifically one with early Hardened Scales draw.
Yeah, for sure. The draws where he has Hardened Scales versus the draws where he doesn't, or like Night and Day.
Yeah.
His win percentage has to increase by an incredibly large amount just by having that enchantment in his opening hand. Alright, turn 1 Aether Vial for Sage.
That's probably our best start. But if we don't have a colored source to follow up with the Hardened Scales, then we're drawing about the same as the last game.
Right.
Pretty good, nothing fantastic.
Yeah, that's true. Let's see what his follow-up is. Is that the green source? I guess if he had Hardened Scales, I'm pretty sure he would slam it, but...
Yeah, there's no reason not to.
Okay, that's not bad. Just, deploying one of his cards, using all of his mana, not the worst. Ooh, that's... Oh, man, that's a backbreaker right there.
Yeah, if we have a 1, we're throwing it on the table now. If not, that's really all we got.
I think the only... It is possible, something that might happen here if Sage has this as part of his game plan, he might have brought in his 1 copy of Ray of Revelation. So if he draws a Spire of Industry, he'd actually be able to cast Ray and be able to get rid of the Stony Silence. But without Spire, he doesn't have any other way of generating white mana.
I think, yeah.
I don't know if he's even brought... He might have brought in Ray. I know some people who have Ray of Revelation in their sideboard bring it in against all the white opponents to hedge against Stony, but I don't know if Sage made that same decision.
Yeah, I think having seen Josh's game plan, I'd be less inclined to do so. Sage going with a turn 3 Metallic Mimic naming construct, of course, because everything in the deck is a construct.
Right.
Honestly, I think it's going to be tough to win the game from this point, but the fact that we're on the board with 4 power and Josh doesn't have anything yet, I think it bodes pretty well for us. If we can untap on turn 4 and play a Karn, we're in a really good position.
That's true. I wonder... So Josh at least has 1 path in his hand. I know I saw a Thought on Seer and a Wall of Omens. I think I also saw a Horizon Canopy in his hand too. So I wonder, maybe his plan this turn is to cast Wall of Omens, hold up Path Exile?
Yeah, I'd be alright with that. Getting rid of the Metallic Mimic is pretty good because it's going to be the thing that allows Sage to have a more degenerate draw.
Right, that's true. Alright, so he's going to lead off on Wall, draw a card.
Wall is also great here. Just chump blocks everything on the floor.
Yeah, the two power creatures are, you know, especially if you path one and then block the other, he's just going to keep his life total nice and high. Yep. Ship it back, hold the path. Certainly a good spot to be in. He's going to get to... He can use Path Exile if he needs to, and if he doesn't need to, next turn he can still go Eldrazi Temple, play Thought Knot Seer, and still have Path Exile up if Sage doesn't do anything that's dangerous enough to use the path right now.
So Sage is going to draw a card, go right to combat, attack for 4. Josh is going to take 2 from the Metallic Mimic, block the Arcbound Ravager with a 0/4 Wall of Omens, and still have Path Exile up.
Yeah. Certainly a good spot for Josh here. Let's see. Another construct. All right, so get rid of Metallic Mimic in response.
We're going to path Metallic Mimic, make it so this new one entering the battlefield does not enter with any +1/+1 counters.
Right. Seems good to just keep Sage's battlefield under control. That Stony Silence is effectively acting as a, X for 1, neutralizing a lot of the cards in Sage's deck. So as long as he can just keep his life total relatively high, make sure that all the creatures on Sage's board are not too big. Wall of Omens blocks a lot of them, and then something like a Thought Knot Seer can be what he uses to end the game.
Yeah, Josh drew his card. He drew in Eldrazi Temple, so a really, really strong line of play here, unbeknownst to Josh, is Ghost Quartering the Inkmoth Nexus, and then using the Temple and the 2 planes to cast the Thought Knot Seer.
Right.
Because Sage doesn't have any more basics left in his deck.
That's true.
So it effectively acts as a wasteland.
I wonder, Josh might be more inclined to... Yep. Josh might be more inclined to hold up the Ghost Quarter in case Inkmoth Nexus isn't activated, but we might see him just fire it off. I'm not sure what his choice would be.
Yeah, I think his opponent in hand has double Mox Opal, so I'd be alright with throwing my Ghost Quarter at the Inkmoth Nexus at any point, really.
Right. He can just wait, though. There's no rush. Doesn't need to, be too aggressive with his use of that Ghost Quarter. He can just sit on it. He knows that his opponent has 2 cards in hand that do nothing against Stony.
Yeah, the Thought Knot Seer completely blanking any good attacks from Sage. Sage really only having 1 unknown card and a Mox Opal in hand at the moment.
Yeah, there's like a Flicker Wisp and a Blade Splicer, plus a Horizon Canopy and a Leonin Arbiter. Yeah, it's certainly liking Josh's spot right here.
I really like Flicker Wisping, actually. Josh has a Flicker Wisp in hand. If he goes Flicker Wisp on the Arcbound Ravager, it's going to come in 1 power less.
Right.
Or, no, it'll still come in as a 2/2.
I don't mind this. This basically makes Flicker Wisp into a 3/1 flyer that will draw a card. Plus, he still has, Ghost Quarter up. He is able to activate the Horizon Canopy to be able to cycle it away during the end step. He's pretty much got a bunch of different angles of play that he can take, and then be able to untap with a bunch of the spells in his hand this next turn.
There's the Hardened Scales finally added Sage.
Yeah.
Same as game 1, just far too little, too late.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate that, on turn 1 it would have made a much bigger difference, but right now it's just kind of anemic.
Josh looks like he has 2 paths in hand. Drew a path 4 turn. Gonna play another Horizon Canopy.
Let's see. Is he just gonna pass something to get in? I don't mind this play. If if you only had one path, I think it's much more reasonable to hold up a path just in case. But since you have two, you can really use one to just like get in now, and you still have one in reserve in case of some shenanigans that could happen down the line.
I think what I do with my path here is I attack with the 4/4, and if he goes for the double block, then you can blow him out with the path.
Right. That's true. That is true.
Josh going to elect to attack with the 4/4 Thought-Knots here and the 3/1 Flicker Wisp coming across for 7. Sage not going to block. Josh, I think, has info that he doesn't have another basic now that he's pathed and his opponent didn't get anything. So he might be inclined on Ghost Quartering now. He is holding it up, and instead of a white source.
Yeah, like, basically, if you wanted to Ghost Quarter now, you're keeping him off of, like, 1 mana on his turn. Holding it up means that if Sage ever activates it unless to try to attack, you're basically denying him the mana instead that way and Ghost Quartering after the fact. So both are fine. I think I like holding it up just because the extra mana that Ghost Quarter represents could matter if you draw something like a Displacer, but at this point it's going to be real hard for Sage to find a way to get through this. The Stony Silence on turn 2 has just been putting the screws to Sage this whole game.
Yeah. Josh, untap. Sage, still only 1 creature on the battlefield. Has an Aether Vial on 0 that's doing nothing because of Stony Silence. Josh finding another Eldrazi Temple.
Is he lethal here?
2 Leonin Arbiters in hand. 2 Leonin Arbiters and a path.
5, 6, 7. His 11 power. But yeah, he doesn't need to act. He can just activate.
Yep. Ghost Quarter before blocks.
Yep. And then now he's got a 2/1 Metallic Mimic versus a 3/1 Flyer, or 3/3 First Strike, and a 4/4.
Yeah, if we're gonna chump the 4/4. Represents the most amount of damage.
Right.
But Sage is just not going to. Sage knows that he's not winning the game without a Metallic Mimic because not much of what he's doing is doing anything else.
True. Yeah, I do not think that Josh is going to lose this game. This looks like yep, there it is.
Yep, there's the handshake. Josh goes to 5-0 with mono white taxes.
Yep, he's certainly got a favorable matchup there. Just having Displacer and Flicker Wisp in your deck versus an opponent filled with Hangerback Walkers and Walking Ballistas is
and
nice
Karn
place
tokens too. Like you can even just remove the Karn tokens from the battlefield.
Yeah, it's just good versus a large swath of what Sage is bringing to the table. It's too bad for Sage. They got a matchup that is very unfavorable for him.
That's kind of modern though.
It is. You're right. You certainly sometimes you win the matchup lottery and sometimes you lose real hard.